The piercing ring of my phone shattered the silence of the night, dragging me from the depths of sleep. My heart jolted as I fumbled for the device on the nightstand, squinting at the screen through the blur of sleep. It was my sister, calling at this ungodly hour. I wiped the grogginess from my eyes and answered. "Hello," I said, my voice thick with confusion. Her voice came through the receiver in a shaky whisper. "It's me. I need help." The crackle on the line made it hard to decipher her words. "What's going on? Why are you calling so late?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rising tide of worry. "I saw something," she stammered, her words coming out in fragmented bursts. "A dark figure. It's in my room." My pulse quickened. I could barely make out the fear in her voice, but it was enough to make my stomach drop. "Stay calm. Can you tell me more about what you saw?" There was a long pause on the other end, filled with unsettling silence. I could almost hear her ragged breathing, punctuated by the distant creaks of her house settling. "I don't know. It was just there, standing by the window. I thought I was dreaming, but I woke up and it was still there." "Okay, I'm coming over," I said, trying to reassure her. "Just stay on the line with me. I'll be there as soon as I can." I threw off the covers and swung my legs over the side of the bed. The cold floor felt like ice against my bare feet as I stumbled toward the door. With each step toward her room, a cold shiver ran down my spine. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the darkness beyond the reach of the dim light feeling more oppressive with every step I took. The door creaked open slowly, and I stepped inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim light of her room. She was huddled on the bed, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. The room was otherwise empty, just as it should be. "Is it gone?" I asked, trying to sound more confident than I felt. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't know. It just vanished, but it felt so real." I sat down beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure this out. It's going to be okay. You're safe now." As I glanced around the room, the feeling of unease remained, but I pushed it aside. Right now, my sister needed me to be strong. The dim glow of the nightlight barely illuminated the room as I stepped inside. My sister's face was a mask of fear, her eyes wide and darting around the room as if expecting the dark figure to reappear at any moment. "Describe it to me again," I said gently, trying to keep my voice steady. "What did it look like?" She clutched the covers tightly, her voice trembling. "It was like a shadow, just a dark, shifting mass in the corner. I couldn't see any features, just darkness that seemed to move on its own. It felt like it was watching me." My heart pounded in my chest. The description sounded more like a nightmare than reality, but the terror in her voice was palpable. "Are you sure it wasn't a trick of the light, or maybe something from outside?" "I don't think so," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It felt too real. I woke up, and it was still there." I swallowed hard, trying to suppress my own rising anxiety. "Okay, we'll figure this out. I'm going to check the room, see if there's anything that could have caused this." "There's nothing here," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "Maybe it was just a bad dream, or a trick of the light. Let's stay together for the night, okay? We'll keep the lights on and make sure nothing else happens." The quiet of the house had turned into a symphony of unsettling noises. Soft thumps, creaks, and distant whispers seemed to echo through the walls, making us both jump at every sound. "I keep hearing things," she said, her voice barely a murmur. "Are you sure we're safe?" "I'm sure," I replied, though my own voice lacked conviction. "Let's just check the rooms and make sure everything is okay." We moved cautiously through the dimly lit house, the light from the nightlight casting long shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. The irregular noises made it difficult to pinpoint their source. Every creak of the floorboards and groan of the house seemed amplified, heightening our anxiety. First, we checked the living room. I scanned the room methodically, opening closet doors and peering behind furniture. Everything seemed in order, but the eerie silence that followed was almost as unsettling as the noises had been. Next, we moved to the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed softly, and the occasional drip of a leaky faucet was the only sound we could clearly identify. As we made our way to my room, the noises grew more erratic, soft thuds that seemed to come from different directions. "Nothing's out of place," I said, forcing a reassuring smile. It's probably just the house settling or some pipes expanding. Old houses can make strange noises. My sister nodded, though she still looked anxious. Do you think we should stay up and keep watch? I think that's a good idea, I said, though I was tired and my nerves were frayed. Let's set up in the living room. We can keep the lights on and stay together. We settled on the couch, the light from the lamp providing a small oasis of warmth amidst the shadows. Despite our best efforts to stay calm, the unsettling atmosphere made it hard to relax. I glanced at my sister, hoping my presence was enough to keep her feeling safe, even as my own nerves continued to fray. The living room was bathed in the soft glow of the lamp, casting a reassuring light over us as we huddled on the couch. The night was quiet now, save for the occasional creak of the house settling. I tried to keep the conversation light, but my sister's unease was palpable. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, a shadow moving across the hallway, just beyond the edge of the light. It was fleeting, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. "Did you see that?" she asked, her voice trembling. I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. "Yeah, I saw it too. It looked like something was moving in the hallway." We exchanged worried glances, our anxiety spiking as we tried to make sense of what we had seen. The shadow had been so elusive, so quick, that it was hard to determine if it was our imagination playing tricks on us, or if something was actually moving around the house. "Maybe it's just the way the light is casting shadows," I suggested, though the tremor in my voice betrayed my own uncertainty. "Let's check the hallway." The hallway was as empty and silent as it had been before. I sighed with relief, but couldn't completely shake off the feeling of unease. There were no signs of intrusion or any evidence that someone or something had been there. Returning to the living room, I tried to regain my composure. "It looks like there's nothing here. It might have just been a trick of the light or our eyes playing tricks on us." My sister nodded, though her expression remained tense. We sat back on the couch, but the conversation felt forced. Despite our efforts to stay calm and rational, the incident had added a new layer of anxiety to an already frightening night. The hallway was eerily quiet as we returned from our brief inspection. My mind was still racing from the sight of the shadow, and I could sense the same unease in my sister's posture. "We always keep that door closed," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why is it open?" A chill ran down my spine. The sense of dread was immediate and overpowering. The door had always been a small but constant barrier between us and the dark, musty basement. Now, with it slightly open, the unknown loomed just beyond it. "I don't know," my sister said, her voice shaking, "but it doesn't feel right." We both stood there for a moment, the dark gap of the door taunting us with its mystery. The air near the door felt colder, a stark contrast to the warmth of the rest of the house. The darkness beyond the door seemed to seep into the hallway, thickening the already oppressive atmosphere. "I think we need to check it out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We can't ignore it. If there's someone down there, we need to know." My sister's eyes widened with fear, but she nodded. "I'll wait here. Please be careful." Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the flashlight from a nearby drawer. The beam of light cut through the darkness, casting long, wavering shadows as I approached the basement door. The basement stairs were steep and narrow, descending into pitch blackness. I could feel the cool air from below, carrying with it the musty smell of old wood and dampness. With a final glance back at my sister, I began to carefully descend the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight, the sound echoing eerily in the confined space. At the bottom of the stairs, I moved the beam of light around the basement. The old storage area was cluttered with boxes and old furniture covered in dust. Nothing appeared out of the ordinary, but the cold air and silence were unsettling. I checked behind the boxes and under the old furniture, trying to find any clue that might explain the open door. After a thorough search, I found nothing unusual. The basement was as I remembered it, unwelcoming but empty. I climbed back up the stairs, the oppressive weight of the darkness lifting as I reached the top. When I emerged, my sister was waiting anxiously. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. I forced a reassuring smile. "Everything seems fine. There's nothing down there, just the usual clutter." Her sigh of relief was palpable, but I could still see the unease in her eyes. The basement door remained open, its presence a stark reminder of the night's unsettling events. I stood in the basement, the faint beam of my flashlight cutting through the thick, oppressive darkness. The cluttered space was filled with old boxes, dusty furniture, and forgotten trinkets. I took slow, deliberate steps through the basement, shining the flashlight into every corner and behind every stack of boxes. The light revealed nothing unusual, just the usual clutter of old possessions, untouched by time. I tried to sound reassuring as I spoke. The basement is clear. There's nothing down there but old stuff. I think the door must have just come open by itself. Her shoulders relaxed a little, but I could still see the worry etched in her features. So, we're safe? I'm sure, I said, though I couldn't entirely shake off the uneasy feeling that had settled over me. But let's keep the basement door locked from now on, just to be safe. We walked back to the basement door, which had remained slightly ajar. I pulled it shut and locked it securely, the click of the lock echoing in the quiet hallway. The simple act felt like a small victory, but the lingering sense of dread made it hard to fully relax. As we returned to the living room, I tried to focus on calming my sister and distracting us from the night's unsettling events. We settled back on the couch, trying to resume our earlier conversation. Despite our efforts to convince ourselves that everything was normal, the strange feeling of being watched refused to go away. The basement remained locked, but the night seemed to stretch on with an unsettling quiet, each creak of the house serving as a reminder of the darkness that had briefly seeped into our lives. The living room, once a haven of warmth and normalcy, now felt like a stage set for a haunting. The quiet of the house had taken on an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional flicker of the lights. It started subtly, small things out of place, like the lamp on the side table slightly askew or the magazines on the coffee table rearranged. "Are you seeing this too?" my sister asked, her voice laced with worry. "It's like the lights have a mind of their own." I nodded, trying to keep my own fear in check. "Yeah, I see it. It's like there's a pattern to it, something deliberate." We both began to notice the subtle ways in which objects were being moved. The shift was almost imperceptible. An inch to the left here, a slight rotation there. It felt as though someone, or something, was deliberately rearranging our belongings. The more we observed, the more unnerving it became. "I think we need to document this," I said, my mind racing as I tried to come up with a plan. "If we're going to figure out what's going on, we need to keep track of everything. Maybe there's a pattern we're missing." My sister agreed, her face pale but resolute. "What should we do?" "We'll set up a camera," I suggested. "If there's anything happening that we can't see, we'll capture it. Let's put it in the living room, where most of the disturbances seem to be." We retrieved an old camera from a drawer and set it up on a small table facing the center of the room. I adjusted the angle and made sure it was recording, the red light on the front indicating that it was operational. For now, we had done what we could. We remained vigilant, the camera our silent witness to whatever might come next. The living room, once a place of comfort, now felt like a waiting room for the unknown, each flicker of the lights and subtle movement of objects adding to the growing sense of dread. The living room was dark, illuminated only by the soft glow of the TV screen as we sat down to review the footage from the camera. My sister and I huddled together on the couch, our eyes fixed on the screen, our breaths held in anticipation. The tension between us was palpable, each of us bracing for what we might uncover. The footage started off innocuously, just the usual stillness of the room. But then the flickering lights and subtle movements began to show up, just as we'd seen them in real time. At first it seemed like nothing more than a trick of the light or our own heightened imaginations. The camera had a slightly grainy quality, making it hard to see details clearly, but there was no mistaking the shadows that moved across the screen. They shifted and danced in ways that defied logic. Then came the most unsettling part. A dark figure, almost imperceptible, briefly crossed the screen. It was fleeting, barely more than a shadow, but its presence was unmistakable. This isn't right," my sister said, her voice barely a whisper. "What is that thing?" "I don't know," I admitted, trying to keep my voice steady. "But we need to find out. This footage doesn't make any sense. There has to be a logical explanation, but I'm not seeing it." The footage left us both feeling disturbed and confused. The shadowy figure and the erratic movements didn't align with anything we'd seen before, and the blurry quality of the footage only made it harder to understand. It was clear that we needed help. "I think we should consult a professional," I suggested. "Someone who knows more about this kind of thing. They might be able to analyze the footage and give us some answers." My sister nodded in agreement, her face pale but determined. "Yes, we need to find someone who can help us. This is beyond what we can handle on our own." We spent the next few hours researching local experts in paranormal investigations and audio-visual analysis. It was a strange and unsettling task, but it felt necessary. By morning, we had contacted a local expert who agreed to review the footage and offer their insights. It was a small relief to know that we were taking steps toward understanding what was going on, but the uncertainty of what the professional might find left us on edge. As we prepared to hand over the footage, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The shadows and movements we'd seen were just pieces of a larger puzzle, and I hoped that the professional's analysis would help us put the pieces together and reveal the truth about what was happening in our home. The living room felt strangely different with the presence of the paranormal investigator. As Alex scrutinized the video footage, their face remained impassive. I could see their brow furrow slightly as they rewound and replayed the footage. Each time the shadowy figure appeared on the screen, I felt a twinge of unease, hoping that Alex would provide some rational explanation. "I see what you're referring to," Alex said finally, looking up from the monitor. "The footage does show some unusual shadows and movements. However, the grainy quality and the lighting could be contributing to the strange appearances. Shadows can often play tricks on the camera, especially with the flickering lights you mentioned." My sister and I exchanged worried glances. I wanted to believe that it was just a camera quirk, but the footage had felt too real, too disturbing. Alex continued, "I'll conduct a sweep of the house to check for any paranormal activity. It's important to approach this with an open mind. Sometimes things like heightened stress or emotional disturbances can amplify our perceptions of normal, everyday occurrences." As Alex moved through the house, they used their tools to measure electromagnetic fields and temperature fluctuations. When the investigation concluded, Alex sat down with us in the living room. "Based on what I've seen and measured, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of paranormal activity," they said. "However, I understand that you're experiencing disturbances. It's possible that these occurrences are being heightened by stress or other psychological factors." I sighed, a mix of relief and frustration washing over me. "So, what do you suggest we do?" Alex offered a series of practical recommendations. "First, it's important to address any sources of stress. Make sure to maintain a calm and balanced environment. You might also want to perform a cleansing ritual if it helps you feel more comfortable. Keeping the house tidy and organized can also reduce the chances of unexplained disturbances." We listened carefully, taking notes on Alex's advice. "Thank you for your help," I said, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. "We'll follow your suggestions and try to manage our stress." As Alex packed up their equipment and prepared to leave, I felt a strange mix of emotions. We had hoped for a clear explanation, but the lack of concrete evidence left us in a state of uncertainty. We followed Alex's advice, taking steps to address the stress and maintain a sense of normalcy. The disturbances continued sporadically, but we hoped that by staying vigilant and adhering to the recommended precautions, we might regain some sense of control over the unsettling events that had begun to overshadow our lives. The house had settled into a tentative normalcy, though the sense of calm was still fragile. We had hoped that the expert's visit would banish our fears, but the memory of the dark figure and the unsettling experiences remained vivid. "Do you think we'll ever really feel at ease here?" my sister asked one evening as we sat together in the living room, our gazes fixed on the familiar surroundings. I shrugged, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I think we'll get used to it. We're more aware now, and we know what to look for. We just have to focus on making the house as comfortable and secure as we can." We set about making small improvements around the house, using what we'd learned from the investigator. We reinforced the security of doors and windows and created a more comforting environment with soft lighting and cozy furnishings. Though the memories of the disturbances lingered, we found solace in our efforts to make the house a safe haven. By focusing on creating a space that felt secure, We hope to diminish the impact of the unsettling experiences and move forward with a sense of renewed stability.